Okay, good morning. Today is the 20th day of Nisan. Tomorrow is the 7th day of Pesach, the 18th of April today. And we're in the second installment of Mitzvahs Akravas Sefirat HaOmer. It's on page 50 in Derech Mitzvosecha. And so today we'll really start getting into it. Yesterday was like as usual. He presented a lot of a little bit of the halacha, a tiny bit of the halacha, a tiny bit of what's in the Torah about this, and then a bit more from the Kabbalah, from the Arizal. And what we need to do today we're going to start getting into it, because he's now going to mention that that when we understand Omer, I said Omer is like a bushel. It's like a shaft of, I think you say a shaft, right? No. A shaft of, how do you say? A sheaf of wheat. A sheaf of wheat. In this case, we said it's barley, because the barley, it's ready earlier by about 2 months. Pesach is the time when you cut the barley, when you... A sheaf. Sheaves. Right. One sheaves. Okay. So Pesach is the time that the barley is already ready in the fields, because it's quick to ripen, and the wheat takes another 2 months. And the time that we cut the wheat, and then that's when we bring the only chametz offering of the year, is on Shavu'ot. So we didn't mention that yesterday. Just want to make that clear. Now, there's this whole thing about the difference between wheat and barley. We talked about it yesterday a little bit. We mentioned a few of the parallels, that the barley is the food of animals, the wheat is the food of man. So it's like the animal soul and the divine soul. And another way of looking at it is that when the child is first born, they can't speak yet. And so it takes time until they speak. And the Torah says, the Gemara says, that the child begins to speak after it tastes from a grain, tam dagan. Now, in truth, barley is also a type of grain, but wheat is the type of grain they mean there. It's not just any type of grain. Now, technically, it doesn't matter. Any type of grain would do. And again, it's not exactly a physical correlation. It's not saying that until you eat wheat, you can't. Something in the vocal cords doesn't work. That's not true. But what they mean to say is that wheat is in some way indicative. Oh, shalom aleichem. Good morning. What they mean to say is that wheat is somehow indicative of speech, and the usual remez, like the allusion, the numerical allusion that's brought, is chita. Wheat in Hebrew is chita, chet tet hey. So the word itself equals 22. And so, what's that 22? The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So it's like there's this distinct connection between speech and wheat. The ability to speak, to utter the letters, and wheat itself. And this is what he's going to be talking about for most of this mitzvah. The power to speak. Now, how is this related? Because he told us yesterday that when we came out of Egypt, Malchus was in a state of katnus. Katnus. Katnus again is smallness. What's Malchus in Kabbalah? What is kingdom? So kingdom, the first thing you need to think of, hopefully, when you think of kingdom, is the power of speech. Malchut peh. Okay, that's in the Patach Eliyahu, in the introduction to Tikkun Zohar. How's that? Why is speech related to kingdom? Because it says bidvar melech shilton, that the king rules by the power of his speech. If he can't rule by the power of his speech, he's not a king. The whole idea is that as a king, you are strong enough that you say something. Amar malka ve'akartura. You said something, and the mountain moves. And if it doesn't move, then you're not a king, or maybe it's not a mountain. But either way, it doesn't work. The whole idea of being a king is to be able to control with your speech. Now, that's in general. It's also personally that way. that if a person cannot control his speech, he's not a king over himself. That's why so many of the mitzvos of really holding ourselves back have to do with speech. So that's the lowest level of it. The higher level of it is that speech is the speech of Torah. That's the higher level. So you can have lower speech with barley, that can be the animal soul. And you can even be a king with just barley, just the animal soul. In the way that technology today is like it ate enough barley that now we can control many aspects of the physical world. But the question is, can you engage in the speech that has to do with Torah? Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah, the Torah that requires you to speak. And that's what you get from Sefirat HaOmer. You get that power, really, because we end, as we said, with wheat being cut and harvested. The wheat harvest festival is Shavu'ot, which happens to be, as it were, the time of the giving of the Torah. And remember, this is not stated in the Torah anywhere. Nowhere does the Torah say that the festival that you have 50 days after Pesach is the festival of the giving of the Torah. It just says it's K'tzir Chitim. It just says it's a time of cutting, harvesting the wheat. And what's the connection? The connection that was made, and again, the Torah may speak at a very agricultural, seemingly naturalistic level. But even just that it makes that connection, that it's K'tzir Chitim, it's the time of the ripening, the harvesting of the wheat. And Chazal already understand that we also knew by tradition that happened 50 days after they came out of Egypt. So Chazal put this together, the sages put this together, it makes 2 and 2 equals 4. It means that wheat is related to the opening of the mouth, Hashem being able to tell us the 10 commandments. Now on the face of it, you don't even see it in Sefirat HaOmer. Why would that be? But let's look at these 2 words, Sefirah and Omer. Counting the Omer. So let's take the easy one. The easy one is Sefirah. What does Sefirah mean? It means people, you say it, to count. It could also mean to illuminate. Open your mouth and your words to shine out. But more importantly, the root itself, safar, just doesn't just mean to count. It actually, before that, it means something else. The saper. And that's what we started doing on the eve of Pesach, on the Seder night. The saper b'yitziat Mitzrayim, to speak, to tell the story. The saper is like to tell the story, to narrate the story of the coming out of Egypt. And we said, if you remember, when we finished, or somewhere in the middle, maybe not, towards the end though, when we were learning the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb, so we said that what is really being freed? What is really the freedom that we received when we were born from Egypt? What was that freedom that was lacking, that we were considered to be enslaved before? That was the freedom of speech, the freedom to express ourselves. Why? Because we said Pesach means a mouth that can speak. So speech was born on the first night of Pesach, but then it's taken away. And it's a very interesting thing. It's like that. It's born, but it's ready to come out, but as we'll see here, it disappears back into its source. And the reason it disappears, interestingly enough, as we'll see, is not because there's a lack of ability to speak, but because there's no gvura. There's not enough might. So this is really a time of din. We're building the might to be able to speak. What does that mean? It means that more important than the flow of the letters out, the flow of the air out from a person's mouth, to create speech you have to have breaks. Every letter is taking the flow of air and molding it by stopping it. Every single letter is not, we think about it as a continuous flow, but really what speech is 22 types of pauses. Those are the 22 letters, different ways in which we pause the air coming out of our vocal cords. So, as we'll see, the most important letter is Hey, and that's what we had yesterday. Seorah, that barley is shi'ur Hey, the measure of Hey. You measure the Hey. Okay, you measure. What do you mean you measure? You take it from here to here. You limit it. So that is speech. That's what we're missing. We're missing actually the gevurot.
On a collective level,
Yeah.
you have to hear speech in order to and our collective first hearing of speech truly was when God spoke.
Right. So you could say also that I thought you were going in this direction, that when people have a conversation, the only way they can hear each other if they have time to pause and hear each other and listen to each other. Otherwise, it's not speech. It's
so that's really the first hearing,
right,
of on a collective basis of what we had to hear in order to speak truly.
right. So let's just finish it with the other word, Yaakov. The other word is Omer. So Omer is Ayin Mem Reish, but Ayin is the external letter, the exterior of the letter Aleph, always.
What
So
do
if
you mean exterior?
meaning there's an Ayin on the outside and there's an Aleph on the inside.
Oh.
What's the Aleph? If you change the Ayin for an Aleph, you get Omer. Omer means a saying. Aleph Mem Reish. So really, what Sefirat HaOmer is about winning back, or not just winning back, but developing the power of speech for the coming year. The power of speech in Torah. Obviously, I have the power of speech already about the past, telling a history of what happened, telling my children what happened. It's a story. But to be able to engage in Torah, I have to get to Shavuos. I have to use these 50 days in order to build my capacity to speak Torah. Speaking Torah is something else. It's something entirely. It's a different capacity. It's the divine soul already. Okay, so that's we didn't get to very much today, but that's a very important introduction to understand everything he's going to say now. Now, a lot of this we actually covered, not a lot, but a good part of the first chapter we actually covered in Mitzvah Tefillah, Shorsh Mitzvah Tefillah. We'll see it again here. So good Moed and Chag Sameach tomorrow, and I hope that on Sunday we'll be able to learn, God willing.